Now I want to give you a big Australian welcome. You remember this TV show or you don't? These are original. Hang on. Skippy, the bush kangaroo.
Skippy the bush kangaroo.
Now, we used to eat our cereal on this one. It's a bowl, and this one's the plate.
That is awesome. I don't think we got Skippy toys and things here.
No, you probably didn't, but you got the show because it was big there. Now,
we got the show on Channel 11, WPIX here in New York.
Now,
Skippy, the bush kangaroo.
That's it. I got a few kangaroos in my backyard.
Oh, wow.
No, that's a joke. There's no kangaroos in my backyard.
No, I don't know. I've never been, but I want to go there.
All right, listen. I challenge you to the Plastic EP pop quiz. Can you take up the challenge?
Dun da da da. Yes.
Okay, here we go. Now your name's Stewie because Australia knows you now as Uncle Stewie. So try and answer this first question. Donald Duck had 3 nephews. What's their names?
Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
You got it right. Who played drums for the Monkees?
Mickey Dolenz.
Well done. And you know him, do you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know Mickey. I knew Davey better, but I of course I've met Mickey a bunch of times, and Mickey's always been very gracious and what a nice guy.
And what about Mike and Peter? You know them too?
I had met them all. You know, of course, you know, we all had to wait for Mike to finally come out in public for a while. Yeah, they were all very cool. They were all very, very cool people.
Who was the sidekick for the Lone Ranger?
Tonto.
Okay. Title of a TV show, and I know it's one of your favorites. I Love
Lucy.
Well done.
And I brought little Ricky out to Chiller.
Tell me about that.
His name is Keith Thibodeau, and he was, you know, a lot of people to this day think that I Love Lucy, that was Desi Arnaz Jr. That was not Desi Arnaz Jr. They needed a little boy because Desi Jr. Was just a baby, I think, at that point. And so in comes, you know, for the auditions, in comes a dad and his little 3.5-year-old son. I believe he was 3.5 or close to 5. And Lucy, you know, interviews them and says, can he act? And the father says, no. And she says, well, what does he do? And he says, he plays drums. I don't think she realized that he had been playing drums professionally since he was 3.5. So she goes, okay, all right, there's a drum set over there. Go, let's see what you can do. And the kid gets on the drums and just, he's killer.
Nails it.
He's killer. And Lucy, of course, immediately calls Desi over to check this out. And that's it. That's little Ricky. That's how little Ricky was hired. And he's a wonderful guy. He's really a really sweet guy. Keith Thibodeau. He has a Christian rock band called David and the Giants.
Okay, last question. Leave it to
Beaver.
Well done. Now, people don't know this.
Guys out. I brought those guys out. Jerry Mathers and Tony Dow to Chiller.
The man that put out Monster Mash. It was a screaming smash. That's right. That's true, isn't it? You managed him for 18 years. You were his manager.
18 years I was his manager. And I remember our first talk on the phone. And I was working in radio at the time, and I had called him to do a Halloween thing, you know, an interview over the phone. And I said, by the way, do you still perform the song? And he said to me, well, occasionally they dig me up and I do a medley of my hit. And I said, wow. I said, well, what do they pay you for this? And at the time he said, yeah, they pay me about $350. And I said, immediately, I said, no way. I said, that song is worth so much more to people. People love that song, and they would love to see you do that song in person. And I said, just send me a little slip of paper that says that, you know, I get a percentage, and let me see what I can do for you. And it was done on a handshake for 18 years. He was one of the greatest guys, and always came through. And when you saw him up on that stage, and he put that lab coat on with the blood and the spiders, and it said Bobby Boris on it, and he broke into Monster Mash, there was no doubt in your mind that you were watching the real deal. The face went dark and I was working, like really, oh my gosh. So we were called once by Steven Van Zandt, who has a radio show called Garage Music. He was doing a Halloween show at the Hard Rock Cafe in Times Square, and he wanted Bobby to perform. So he calls me up. I book Bobby in. We go into rehearsal. Bobby's up on the stage now. The band breaks into Monster Mash, and he goes into Monster Mash. And I remember Steven walking up and going, he sounds just like the record. And that's how, it was just, when you saw Bobby do it, it was no doubt in your mind, this was the guy. And that song will always be the national anthem of Halloween and go on forever.
Now, we got to talk about your recording career, because a lot of people don't know, right? But even Sammy Petrella, he put out a comedy song album on the phone. Do you remember that? So now that
Sammy Petrella did an album of actual telephone calls where he would call people up and put them on the spot. And you would get real reactions to Sammy, saying, I got a gorilla here in the living room and it's ready to give birth. Can you talk me through it? And there'd be like 3 people from a hospital, talking him, all through how to do it. What do I do? What do I do with the cord? What do I do? And it was called My Son, the Phone Caller. And it didn't get a lot of, it wasn't on a major label, but it's a great album. Look on eBay to try to find it. This was what the Jerky Boys ended up doing. This preceded all of that. This was pretty much the first guy on record that did actual real phone calls and putting people on the spot.
Exactly. But let me tell you, Stuart, you see, that's in the blood, because here comes 1976 or whatever year it is, and disco's out, and you put out a song called Disco Toilet. Tell me about that.
Yes. Okay, well, disco came along, and I wasn't a big fan of disco. Now, what people that are younger don't understand is when disco was in, you had an AM radio in your car. Not everybody had an FM radio. And in New York, there were like 2 stations that were music stations, and all they played was disco. You couldn't get away from disco. And you went out to a club and it was just disco, and it was like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, okay, I can't take this. So me and my friend Larry put together this song called Disco Toilet. And it was Disco Toilet, flush your cares away, with a big toilet sound in it. Somebody put it up on YouTube, actually. And it ended up, Dr. Demento played it for us and loved it. And he would play it continuously. And then he put it on one of his Dr. Demento basement tapes collection. And it finally got out. But it was went to the bathroom the other day. How did I know I was going to have to pay? I put the dime in the usual way. All of a sudden, music began to play. Disco Toilet, flush your cares away.
That's funny. Now, let's move on now to Chiller Theatre. You're very good at making reunions. You did the Love Boat, and you also did like a Get Smart one. Let's talk about Get Smart. Barbara Feldon and Bernie Koppel.
Yeah, well, one thing I would just like to clarify that I didn't earlier is I don't run Chiller. It's not my convention, but it was put together by a wonderful guy named Kevin Clement, and he started 30 years ago as a guy who went to conventions and then started putting his own convention together. And out of all the conventions that are out there, this is the one that still feels like you're going to a party. I call it Camp Chiller. Because it's such a great feeling. So I started bringing out people in reunions, and I brought out the cast of The Love Boat, which was, the captain, Gavin MacLeod, and his daughter, Vicky Stubing, which was played by Jill Whalen, and Isaac, who was played by Ted Lang, and then Bernie Koppel played Doc. And Bernie, before Love Boat, was Siegfried on Get Smart, the head of Chaos. And Agent 99, of course, was Barbara Feldon. So I brought in Barbara, and we had the Love Boat reunion, and then right next to it we had the Get Smart reunion, and people were able to see both of them. And a guy actually came in with an actual shoe phone, and that was pretty cool. You never know what you're gonna see. But the reunions that I've done there, I did Perfect Strangers with Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker, first one in 25 years. Jerry Mathers and Tony Dow. And people like reunions. They like to see reunions. And the next chiller, which is coming up in the last weekend in October, if all goes well, I will have from Home Improvement, from Tool Time, I'll have the Tool Time girl, which was Debbie Dunning, and I'll have Al, who was played by Richard Karn. And we're doing a little reunion of Home Improvement. And I should have the 3 Petticoat Junction girls there as well, and a couple of other surprises.
I'm a big fan of that. Now, Stuart, I got to thank you so much for this great interview. And from Melbourne, Australia, I'll let you take us out, Stuart. Say goodbye to everyone. And what a great interview this was.
And thank you for watching. Peace and love.
Same to you. Peace and love.